I am Shaan McDonald, the host of Money Making Conversation Masterclass, where we encourage people to stop reading other people's success stories and start planning their own. Join us as we travel across the country, visiting small businesses and interviewing celebrities to see how they're running their companies and nonprofits who are making a difference in their local communities. Now sit back and watch as we unlock the secrets to their success. Hi, I am Shaan McDonald. I host this weekly Money Making Conversation Masterclass show. The interviews and information that this show provides are for everyone. It's time to start reading other people's success stories and start living your own. If you want to be a guest on my show, please visit our website, moneymakingconversations.com, and click the Be a Guest button and submit your information. Now let's get this show rolling. My guest is the founder and CEO of Prep Expert. Prep Expert has helped more than 100,000 students improve their SAT and ACT scores, get into top colleges, and win over this, check this out, $100 million in scholarship. Prep Expert offers online SAT and ACT courses, academic tutoring, and college admissions consulting. Please welcome to Money Making Conversation Masterclass. When you say 100 million, he is a Money Making Conversation Masterclass guest, Dr. Shaan Patel. How you doing, Shaan?
Hey, Rashaan. How are you? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, when did this all get started, Prep Expert? How did this get out of that mind, that brain? What initiated that thought process, Prep Expert?
Great question. So this actually started off as a side hustle for me and turned into a seven-figure business now.
Mm-hmm.
So the way it got there was actually as many great businesses do, which is out of my own experience. You know, I was like many of the students and parents listening to this podcast in that I was not a great test taker. I was good in school, got good math and science, English grades, but had a lot of test anxiety. I went to urban public schools in Vegas, which if you know anything about Vegas, it's not known for its education.
Yes.
So we had like a close to a 30-40% dropout rate. And so my parents didn't go to college here in the US, didn't know the first thing about test prep, college admission scholarships, but I did know I wanted a high SAT score. Problem was, first one I took, I scored about average. And so I then spent hundreds of hours in the library studying for the SAT, eventually raised my score 640 points to get a perfect SAT score, which is something that only 0.02% of all students achieve. That completely changed my life, got into the nation's top universities, got $500,000 in scholarships, even got to meet the President of the United States. And so when I got to college, I wanted to help other students improve their test scores. I started Prep Expert. In the very first 6-week SAT course my students ever took, they had an average score improvement of 376 points in just 6 weeks. So that's equivalent of taking a student from the 50th percentile and putting them in the 90th percentile, totally changing their college and scholarship opportunities. Of course, I had parents and students who wanted more courses, so I began training other instructors to teach my curriculums, and the rest is history. Over the past 15 years, as you mentioned, we've helped over 100,000 students improve their test scores, get into top colleges, and win over $100 million in scholarships. Of course, the highlight of the company was on ABC Shark Tank.
Let's not get there yet. I want to stay on you because in order to be a highlight, you have to start something and you have to learn how to scale something because that's what made it happen successfully when you went to Shark Tank. Now, this whole process, like you said, perfect score. You're a person that sometimes people through stereotype would assume you're supposed to get that. You're hard studying, hard working. But you said, Rashaan, I was a bad test taker. And I had to learn, and through this learning process, I developed this curriculum. And now you converted that curriculum to something that you're making money off of. Now, in the process of developing that curriculum, walk us through the steps of the do's and don'ts of what you had to do to make it common to everyday people to understand.
Oh, that's a great question. So, when I was trying to create the curriculum, I was actually, I wasn't ever trying to start a course. Instead, I was trying to write a book. I thought, I've got this great idea. I'm going to write the first SAT prep book by a perfect score student. Everyone's going to love it. It's going to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. And so I pitched this book proposal out to hundreds of literary agents and publishers. And, they put me in my place. They say, you don't have a platform to write the book. The SAT prep market's too competitive. There's no way this book's going to work. And so, I was really discouraged at that point. And the way that I was writing my book material was, to your point, I was trying to make it relatable and
Mm-hmm.
easy to understand for the average student, because I was really average test taker myself. So I knew which strategies really resonated with me for like how to read passages or how to do algebra problems, and which ones were just way too complicated, complex, that wouldn't resonate with most students. And so that's really how I wrote my book material. Of course, the book material, when you're writing a book, you really have to think about your audience and how to make it simple. But that translated perfectly into the course, because I was like, I can just take all this material and now teach it in a course format. And it did work. It made it super easy for others to learn. And the funny story is that, after about a year or two of doing the courses, McGraw Hill, the world's largest education publisher, who had previously rejected me, said, hey, we'll give you the book deal now. We ended up doing the book. It sold over, 50,000 copies. We went number one on Amazon for SAT prep. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was funny how my original idea to do the book didn't come to fruition until I took this other path of, setting up my own courses and business.
And what we talk about a lot on this show, don't accept the word no.
Mhm.
Modify your vision, follow through, and see your dream despite rejection. And that's a classic case right there. People rejected your idea because they didn't understand it. Or maybe, Shaan, you didn't know how to pitch it. Is that your
Yeah.
case too?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think through all the rejections, as I've been through hundreds of rejections, whether it's literary agents, publishers, media, I didn't know how to pitch in the beginning. I was stuttering. I was not presenting myself well on phone calls, on business investments, whatever it may be. And that's one of the beauties of entrepreneurship is you can really hone your presentation and your pitch skills, but you have to go through sucking at it first.
Right, right. When I do these type of shows, Sean, I always like to hold people's attention. I already got them 100,000 students, $100 million in scholarships, SAT, ACT. We all know parents want their kids to do well. From your words, people are listening. Why should they take Prep Expert versus the competition?
Great question. And I can put it into our brand motto, which is change your score, change your life. That's our
Mm-hmm.
brand. And what I mean by that is when you come to Prep Expert, you're going to take our courses, your student's going to do well on the SAT and ACT. But not only that, they're going to open up their college and scholarship opportunities. We've had students win half a million, million, quarter million, $100,000 in scholarships, totally eliminate their student debt. But not only that, they're going to change their lives because in our courses, we also teach life skills. We teach you about time management, how to study effectively, how to be more productive, how to realize your dreams. We give them a goal score in the beginning and we have them visualize and manifest their scores and their future careers. No other test prep company is doing this. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're teaching them at 15, 16, 17 years old how to, be better with their time, be more productive, how to have goals. And I mean, how valuable is that? I
Right.
know we're a test prep course, but we teach you so much more. And that's why we say change your score, change your life. We have students now, since we've been doing this for 15 years, who are executives at NVIDIA, who are dermatologists, plastic surgeons. They've become very successful in their lives. And I know we're just a small portion of it, but I'm hoping that we planted a lot of those seeds on how to be successful very early on in their lives as high school students.
Right. I'm talking to Dr. Shaan Patel. He founded and the CEO of Prep Expert. Prep Expert has helped more than 100,000 students improve their SAT and ACT scores, get into top colleges, which is key, and win over, get this, $100 million in scholarships. When you talk about the process, because this is online, some people might say that's very impersonal, online, you can't touch anybody. How do you break that wall and make people feel comfortable, or students especially, who sometimes can have a very short attention span? Because this is what this interview is about. I'm excited. You have a brand that can change people's lives, but I also want people who are listening to understand I want to go to this website right now and help my child become a better give a better opportunity to achieve and exceed. Talk to us about the process of contacting you and the steps.
Great question. Yeah, so the process to contact me and how our courses work is really parents or students who are interested, they can head over to prepexpert.com and they
Mm-hmm.
can view all of our online services. So we have online SAT courses, online ACT courses, college admissions consulting, one-on-one tutoring. To your point, though, many parents may be concerned that, this is online, it's not in person. And in 2019, I probably would have said, you know what, you're right. But in 2020, the whole world changed.
Mm.
COVID made everyone go online. Students had to learn online. They're more comfortable learning online, I would say, than in person nowadays. The technology to learn online is so much better. We're doing this podcast online now.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's just so much more resources and more comfortability, especially among young people, on learning online and learning in a live online environment.
Now, you said it earlier. This started out as a side hustle, Shaan. And
Mm.
when did you say the light bulb clicked? You know something? I can make some money. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, it did start out as a side hustle. It literally started out, I wrote this curriculum in my college dorm room in my senior year of college. And I was like, you know what? I'll make a little bit of money over the
Mm-hmm.
summer. It's going to be, just some pocket change and, great. But what I realized was the students did so well in the first 6-week SAT course. As I mentioned, they had almost 400-point average score improvement. Incredible. That parents didn't let me just quit. They just said, hey, you got to do more courses. Like I
Right.
literally had people calling my phone like, hey, my student couldn't take that course that you taught. Do you have another one coming up? And I was like, well, no, but I guess I could. And so we
Right.
started out, that's when and then what I realized is, and this is when you have a good business. This is applicable to all the business people, entrepreneurship people out there. The best marketing strategy is word of mouth.
Yes.
So it's when people tell your customers, your clients, they tell other customers and clients about you. Because literally for the first 5 years of my business, we spent $0 on marketing and we kept doubling our business year over year.
Mm-hmm.
And that tells you that it was just our students and parents telling other students and parents, hey, you got to check out this course over here. My student did really well. And that's what you want as a business owner.
Right. Hey, a couple of things before we get to the Shark Tank experience. Okay. Price points. Okay,
Yeah.
you're a young entrepreneur. You got this idea. It's a side hustle, making money. Now people are saying, "I need more. I need more." You're a one man operation, basically, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I first started, I was a customer service,
Yeah.
sales teacher, everything. Yeah.
So, how did you set your price points early on? And then we're going to talk about, and what year did this all kind of like start?
Yeah. So the way that I set my price points early on was how every entrepreneur sets them, which I think is the wrong way to set them. You look at the competition and you set it
Mm-hmm.
a little bit lower. And,
Right. That's true. That's true. That's true.
yeah, it's not the way to do it. And the way that I set them now is I set them by valuing our time. So what I set them on a per hour basis. So I think our courses start at about, $15 or $20 per hour. And that's a lot of value to learn from a 99th percentile
That's
instructor at
pretty
$20
low.
an hour.
What
Yeah.
changed about that's pretty low. That's pretty reasonable. I'm just gonna let you know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So $20 an hour, but it's a 60-hour course, so that comes out to
Mm-hmm.
$1,200. So
Mm-hmm.
when you look at it at $1,200, people say, "Oh my God!" But I say, "Well, you got 60 hours with a top 1% mentor and instructor." I think it comes out pretty reasonable to your point. So that's the way I price it now. Is I price it per hour because once people hear that per hour rate, it's a lot more reasonable than hearing a package rate, and that would be a strategy I would suggest for all business owners: value your time and price it out appropriately for your clients. Because if you just tell them the $1,200 price at first, they'll say, "Oh no, I won't pay that." But if you say it's $20 an hour, that's a lot more reasonable.
Because
So
that's
when you
what you
break
did
it
with
down,
me. You led with
yeah,
your $20 an hour. That's pretty cheap. I like that
yeah,
price. You said,
yeah, oh yeah,
okay, total 60 hours, $1,200. Okay, see, I'm already in because you got me in with the $20 an hour.
Yeah,
$200, I
yeah,
do the math. Okay, I can work with that. 60 hours, I can work with that. Now,
yeah.
the Shark Tank experience. How did that come
Hmm.
about and why?
Yeah. So I was really looking for investment in about 2015, 16
And
timeframe. So
this was
four or
brick
five
and
years
mortar. This
into
is
it.
the brick and mortar style of
Yeah.
investment you wanted because that was the model that you had prior to COVID.
Yeah, that was really the play. I thought brick and mortar, and to your point, parents wanted in person before COVID. They didn't really, they were scared of online courses.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, we got to be in person. So 2015, 2016, I was looking for investment to expand brick and mortar, expand our marketing, because I feel like we had really maxed out what we could do with our couple locations in my hometown of Vegas, and I wanted to go further. So I went to a Shark Tank casting call pitch, and I stood in line with 500 other entrepreneurs. And I was the last person in line because I'm always late. I was late to this interview, and and
Love it. Love it.
and
Consistency, Sean. Consistency. I
yeah,
love it.
consistency. So I waited
Yeah.
8, 9 hours to give a 1 minute pitch. And the casting call producer was totally unimpressed with my pitch. I was like, we've done $1 million in sales. I've been in the New York Times. I was saying all this stuff that I thought was impressive, and his face was stone cold until the very last second. I pulled out my book, my SAT prep book that I had done with McGraw Hill, and he noticed my face was on the cover, and he couldn't believe that I was a published author. And I think this is another great lesson for entrepreneurs. Having a book can produce so much authority for you. You
Mhm.
become the expert in your field. And, he was like, can I have the book for my nephew? And I gave him the book. And 2 weeks later, they were calling me to be flying me out to LA to be on Pitch Shark Tank. And it never would have happened if I didn't have the book, which kind of pieces everything together. Originally I wanted the book didn't happen,
Mhm.
book happened, book happens, I get on Shark Tank. So it's kind of this weird string that I would have never been able to connect the dots until looking back now.
Now let's talk about brick and mortar versus online when it comes to the quality of instructors that you're able to get because
Mm-hmm.
you're online. Because brick and mortar, they basically got to be in the city where they're at
Mm-hmm.
to go to that location. But because you're online, basically these instructors can reside anywhere. I would like to believe that you were able to raise the quality of people that you brought on board to be instructors for your prep expert, correct?
Oh, big time. Yeah. Anytime you can increase your applicant pool, you're going to be able to have a higher quality of person fill that role for you. So instead of having to look in the certain cities we were in previously, now I can look in all 50 states. And what that does is we have a pretty high bar. As I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
we only hire 99th percentile scores. We only hire people with a ton of teaching experience. We have them do trials of online teaching for us before we hire them to see that they're personable, that they can teach well, that they can really command a classroom, etc. And it's really raised the bar by being able to do it online. So it's another big benefit that you pointed out for sure.
I would tell this just on a personal note, Sean. You're very likable, very engaging, and I think that reflects your business model, prep expert.
I hope
You
so.
it does reflect it. Very. So I'm not shocked that you said that there's a level of enthusiasm and a level of care that you put into the whole process, and people that you want to. It's yes, you're making money, but you also, like you said in the beginning, changing lives. And in the
Yeah.
end, that's your legacy. You're building a legacy through academic training, and that's what is the model which should drive this country and any country that wants to be an academic success. Now let's talk
Yeah, if you want
about.
to be a leader, I think
Mhm.
it's absolutely. I know people talk about getting rid of tests. I'll tell you, China and India aren't getting rid of tests. So if we want to compete, we got
Yeah.
we
And
got
that's
to
why
have the
that's why
best
I
of the
brought you on the
best.
show. I wanted to make sure people understand there are options out there. Like I said, there are some people I brought on the show, but your model was really engaging to me because I did my research. I like the extra, the perks. It was like
Mm,
a student comes to you and they don't feel, and I didn't feel they were going to be left with that one angle to be achieve success. Like you
yeah.
said, there are other ways you can communicate. that felt like, no, you're not in a building, but you're in a home, and this home is
Yeah.
here to help you win. Now, you first went to Shark Tank. Let's get back over there because I want people to hear this amazing story because it changed your life financially. You couldn't pitch. At that 1 minute pitch, you pull out the book at the last minute. 2 weeks
Yeah.
later, they call you. Okay, what did you do differently, and how did you prep for the actual show, or did they help you? The producers help you out.
Oh, great question. Um, I'd spent just like I spent hundreds of hours prepping for the SAT. I spent hundreds of hours prepping for my Shark Tank pitch. I
Okay.
watched tape. I watched all the Shark Tank previous episodes. I wrote down every question that Mr. Wonderful was asking, that Damon John was asking, that Mark Cuban was asking, and then I prepped, answers. One really unique thing I did that I thought was really important for my pitch, and why I think a lot of people remember it, is I have the most boring business in the world. It's test prep. All right. So,
Right.
and I know that Shark Tank is an entertainment TV show. And I knew that they don't air all of the pitches. So I had to make sure that I was interesting enough that they would air my pitch. So I wrote down every interesting story about my life related to how I started the business, about entrepreneurship, about how my dad came to the US with $70. And I was like, I'm going to share these stories within the questions so that I can make my pitch a little bit more interesting than SAT prep and make it about the American dream and, all these larger themes. And it worked. It totally worked. It was one of the most remembered and seen Shark Tank pitches ever. And, the takeaway for entrepreneurs out there is make your business, make yourself interesting. Think the art of storytelling is so, so important in any business or any path you pursue.
Now we're talking about pricing again. How did
Mm-hmm.
you say, for that amount of money, I'm going to give up this amount of my business? How did you come to that decision when it came to Prep Expert? This is your baby now. The side
Yeah.
hustle. It's a business. Now, some money can come your way, but you also have to give up some of your brand. How did you come to
Yeah.
that decision?
Yeah. So at the time, we weren't a huge business. I think we were doing about $500,000 in revenue per year. So I had priced it at. So I used a strategy, which was I knew the sharks were going to negotiate on the equity. So I would be comfortable at $250,000 for 20%, but I went in asking for $250,000 for 10%, knowing that I'm going to have that 10% negotiation room. And Mark Cuban must have read the room perfectly. He must have been in my head because he said, I'm only doing $250,000 for 20%. And I said, that's my limit. And we shook hands and we had a deal. Yeah. So it played out to a T. Yeah.
I love it. When you this whole thing about, social media, word of mouth, website traffic, what type of website traffic do you generate now that lets you know, wow, it's a lot of people through curiosity, through trying to understand this brand is really blowing you away? Talk to us about the social media aspect of marketing, the website traffic part of the business.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So, just to give you an idea, when we first started, I think our first year in business, we had about 10,000 hits to the website. And now, 15 years later, we get about 2 million hits to the website on an annual basis, which is pretty incredible. What is that, 20x or something like that? And so
you're so calm. Don't worry about it. You're so calm.
Yeah. And we've produced over 50 million in revenue now. I think I told you we did $500,000 a year when we were on Shark Tank. We are just crushing it on we have a email and social media list of 200,000 followers. And that's just a function of doing good work for a long period of time, building a brand. I think a lot of people don't talk about building a brand enough. As I mentioned, our brand is change your score, change your life. And a lot of people like to follow that message because they know the importance of education and how it can change your lives. I'm a result of that myself, my own personal story, but also all of my students. And hopefully, in the larger scheme of things, really what I want to embody is the American dream, go back to meritocracy, go back to working hard and getting rewarded for it, whether that's in business or in education. And that's what we embody.
Wow, this is I looked up and I went, wow, we're at 26 minutes. And it's just been a fun interview. Yeah, like
It
again,
is.
I have to just compliment you on your personality, compliment you on your vision. It's a great story, but also you're changing lives, and that's what really excites me about being able to be a part of your life. Be able to share this information to people who are trying to give their child or themselves an
Yeah.
opportunity to exceed. With that note, I know parents come to you. Do adults come to you? Who are post high school that gets into these courses, and what's the difference in those type of people versus the parents bringing their child to be part of Prep Expert?
Yeah, so for the most part, it is parents of high school students, but there are some adults we've had who will come to us who are looking to go back to school and they need an
Mm-hmm.
SAT or
Mm-hmm.
ACT
Mm-hmm.
score. And you know what's funny is those are often the most motivated because they've been out in the real world, and the real world is not as kind as the education world, as I know, having been in business and education.
Right.
And so they work the hardest, they do the best. We've had really remarkable stories of adults doing well with our courses too. Yeah.
Cool. Close out this, man. What's the future, brother, for Prep Expert? You already talking about the dentists, the doctors, the teachers, the lawyers, probably
Yeah.
congressmen who you actually taken your course, and it really is a system where you can take control of your lives.
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, over the past decade, we've helped students win over 100 million in scholarships. So over the next
Mm-hmm.
decade, I want to take that a step further. I'm on $1 billion scholarship mission. I want to help
Mm-hmm.
students win over $1 billion in scholarships, get those $100,000, $200,000 full ride scholarships through their test scores, through college admissions, and change their lives. Because if I can financially remove your student debt when college is so expensive, I've changed your life forever because now you're financially free after college or after your graduate education to pursue your passions. You can have more freedom in the careers and the entrepreneurship choices you make. And so that's really the future vision that I have, is to help hundreds of thousands of students eliminate their student debt, get billions in scholarships, and do that over the next decade to change their scores and change their lives.
Thank you, brother. I really, really appreciate you coming on Money Making Conversation Masterclass. Thank you, Shaan.
Thank you, Rashawn. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I'm going to do a shameless plug. Any parents and students interested, check out prepexpert.com.